It is a frosty December morning. Steve and I decided that we needed a bit of a hike and we need some coffee. So we decided to take a little hike through the snow to brew some coffee next to a lake.
Until one time we actually had a steel runner sled, and occasionally they would gravel the road because it's ice. It's just an ice road, and so they'd put gravel on it, and as you're going down, sparks are coming off this sled.
And the grinding sound.
Yes.
Oh, nice one.
Yeah. I had a couple of close calls.
It's even better when there's a little bit of a drop off to your side.
Yeah.
Makes it more fun.
Yeah, it'd be a nice little sleigh ride. Not very far, you wouldn't get very far.
No, that log would stop you right between the legs.
Yeah.
What?
Man, did you hurt your legs? No.
Nope.
1,000-to-1 coincidence, my willy got in the way.
1,000,000 to 1 shot, Doc. Right up the right.
Ah.
And go
At
for
least
it.
it's mercifully bereft of snow.
I know. Man, that Tesla really goes.
Yep. wanted more coffee or different flavor. How strong do you want your coffee?
Yep.
Okay, I agree.
Whole pot right there.
And we can dilute as needed.
Make some cowboy coffee out of her.
Make some cowboy coffee out of her.
Flames are just creeping. Just creeping.
Leroy, that'll do.
Chunks are falling. Mesmerized by fire. Surrounded by snowy mountains.
So Steve, when you were young,
Yes.
where did you guys go sledding?
Well, at the time I lived in Hayden Lake and off English Point Road, which means nothing to anybody else other than people that might know that road. So it's a fairly steep road, and as it drops down overlooking the lake, it's a sheer drop.
Yes.
So if you mess up,
You're
you
done.
really mess up.
You really mess up. So, and then we're talking a street where cars drive on.
Cars drive on it, but this was a time where there weren't a whole lot of cars in the area. So on occasion, you would have to attempt to steer your toboggan-like sled by dragging your foot usually,
Yeah.
trying to slow it down on one side so it would kind of steer, until one time we actually had a steel runner sled, and occasionally they would gravel the road because it's ice. It's just an ice road, and so they'd put gravel on it, and as you're going down, sparks are coming off this sled.
And the
underneath.
grinding sound.
Yes.
I'm familiar with
Yes.
that.
Yeah, so the steel runner sled was the absolute favorite, but you had to wait until it was icy before you could run it. So until then, you're taking the round saucer disc or a
toboggans.
toboggan type sled down that road. And occasionally you got some pretty good speed, but usually it was controllable and not too crazy. There's a few times we ran off into the ditch or coming close to the edge where you just kind of put both your feet down and slide to a stop before you get in there. But the edges were soft enough that would slow you down before you really go and make a big mistake. Sledding.
Good times. Good times.
Not something I thought about until you asked.
Well, it's not something that I dwell on either, but as we were walking down the hill in the snow,
Yes.
I guess, it stimulated some old memories. And,
Yeah.
Christmas time is coming here. And
Christmas
and
time
this
is
is,
near.
this is the time of year when I was a kid.
Mhm.
This is when we do our
excitement.
sleigh
Go out
riding and stuff.
playing, building snowmen, and
Let's find, where's
I
a
remember
good,
as a kid just outside for hours, just throwing these giant snowballs.
yeah.
And so large that it was unreasonably large.
Absurdly
large.
hundreds
Yeah.
and hundreds of pounds. And then you'd build the second snowball you'd have to make incrementally,
Yes.
because there's no way once you rolled it,
Yeah.
you couldn't pick it up. You couldn't pick it up and put it on top because
Too large.
it's too large. We made one year. We hijacked. You think that's got field of vision here?
Oh, of course, yes. Yeah, if you saw me on the screen, you're definitely in it.
So one year we made a snowman, huge snowman. We hijacked my buddy's dad's tractor, farm tractor, with a loader bucket to lift because the secondary snowball was so
Too
big,
large.
and we had to use it to push the base snowball into place too. 'Cause
Yes.
we're talking tons of snow, and we built this huge snowman. We did it in the night
Oh,
on the front lawn of the school,
okay.
and
So now you've got tractor tire marks in the
surprise.
snow going.
Well, no, we did a good job of keeping the tractor, so we didn't dig up the grass or anything like that. And it was cold enough that the ground was frozen, but we built a giant snowman in front of the school, and then a few weeks later, while it's still standing, we had a brilliant idea. After another snowfall, we probably shouldn't, well, I don't know if this should be included in our video, but here it goes.
Use
We
your
decided
vulgarity.
to you transform the snowman into a, let's say, a phallic symbol.
Giant.
That's exactly right. And then we thought, that's so grand, we'd like it to be lasting, because good art is meant to
Yes.
last through the
So
ages.
you ice it up.
We iced it up. We went and got buckets of water from my buddy's nearby house, and we carried it across the streets, and we iced that baby down. And then, as chance would have it, the weekend came up, and it was real bitter cold, below zero. So this thing
Solid.
formed solid.
Solid.
And then the New Year's holiday was over, and people came back to school, and the principal, a very pious man, was extremely dismayed by this grotesque and obscene structure in front of the school entrance, and he went over feverishly trying to push it over, and realized, while kids were watching, it was hilarious. People saw, and they were laughing at it, and it was tons. I mean, we're talking tons and tons of
You're not
ice.
moving it, but
You're not
he's going to
moving
try.
And he was so worked up by it, he went over, he asked nearby kids, here, see if we can push it. Couldn't do it. He went to the football team coach and said, can you get some football team guys? And they tried to push it, and they couldn't. So he had to call somebody with a tractor and push it over. And it pushed over, but it
Steve
maintained its
monkeys.
form. So instead of a vertical phallic symbol, it
now it's
became
on
a
the-
horizontal one. And then he tried unsuccessfully to cut it with the loader bucket, and finally kind of got it to break a little bit, but that was it. And they just piled a little bit of snow around it. But
Bury
as it melted out,
Still
that thing
solid.
was there.
Snow melts and
Yep.
it's still in its
It
solid
lingered until February-ish, February, March, and there it was. And as we'd walk into school, we'd chuckle. Even months later, giggle. Okay, well, enough of the
Yes, about your sledding
obscenity.
ventures.
Yeah, so when I was walking down the hill in the snow, I just remembered about this time of year. I grew up in southeast Idaho
Yes.
in a very small town. There wasn't a lot to do, and actually the winters are harsher down there than they are up here. We get a lot more snow, and it was boring at the best of times, but when winter came, there's nothing to do, well, relatively speaking. And one of the few things that you could do as a kid was to go out and build snowmen and have snow fights and build snow forts and go sledding. And when you have those beautiful, perfect snowstorms,
Oh,
and
yeah.
in its winter wonderland, we'd
And
grab
still snowing.
yeah, it's still
Best.
snowing. That's the best. And we'd grab our sleds and we'd pull them out of town. From my house to our favorite sledding hill, I'd say it's about 2 miles, 2-mile walk. And at that time, you don't,
It's nothing.
it's nothing. And you don't have, your parents you couldn't say, hey, Mommy, will you take me to the sledding hill? You'd get a backhand across the face. This was a day when people weren't little marshmallows.
Yes.
And so, we'd pull our sleds, and that was part of the adventure, was pulling your sled,
Yeah. Up
out.
the hill.
Well, out, it was relatively flat until you got out of town, but you pull it along the streets and, quiet, hushed. The only sound most of the time was just the crunch of the snow under your feet. And there's something magical about it, to the point that you didn't talk a lot.
Yeah.
There's just something that made you feel almost reverent. And we pull it out of town, and on the edge of town there's this hollow. We called it Creamy Hollow, but it was actually Creamery Hollow, due to an old dairy there was a dairy that used to be down there back in the day that sold butter and cream and so on. But it had an awesome hill. I'd say it varied from 20 20 degrees to 45 degrees right in the middle.
Oh,
It
that's
was
pretty
a
steep.
steep. So it started out relatively gentle, and then there was a section, maybe 30, 40 feet of 45 degree-ish. Really, I mean, we're talking down
Yes.
to get some speed, and then it had a gentle taper towards the end, and it was I'd say a few hundred yards from top to bottom, and you had a long stretch at the bottom where it
Mellows
tapered
out,
out and
yeah.
mellowed out, and you could decelerate. But when you first started, one of us would always bring a toboggan first, and
Flatten it out.
flatten it out with the toboggan, get your path worked out, and then the runner,
Yeah.
the steel runner sleds, those are the ones that haul.
Yes.
Man, those things get speed. If
Polish them up and.
presuming you have it, flattened out with the base with a toboggan.
Oh yeah, yeah. You've got to have it packed.
And then we would wax the runners of our sled. You could get some incredible speed going down those hills. In retrospect, it was foolhardy, some of the things we did. Off to one side there was a barbed wire fence. So
Oh, yeah.
you had to make sure that you didn't drift off to the side, and you'd start in the middle and you'd keep it in the middle.
Yeah.
And it was ill-advised to
Especially with the toboggan where you can't really steer it. You really have to get your angle right.
with the toboggan, or those round disc things that
Yes.
you sit in.
You got to get your angle right.
It's going where it's going. You have no control over it.
The terrain is your direction.
Terrain will be your captain.
Yes.
The captain has turned the crashing into the barbed wire fence sign. And
Cover your cheek.
we would go, so we'd ride down that hill, Creamy Hollow Hill. We'd ride down that, and then you'd take your sled back up and ride down again, rinse, repeat. We'd repeat that till we were just too tired to do it anymore.
Dragging.
Oh,
One more.
one more.
Yeah.
It's almost getting dark, which is not in Idaho in the winter. Yeah, 3 o'clock-ish, 4 o'clock-ish, it's starting to get, dusk. And then by the time we're done, it's dark. And, if there's a clear sky, which there usually wasn't, in the middle of a snowstorm, it's snowing.
Yeah.
That's it, light's gone. As soon as the light starts to fade, it's time to drag our sleds home. And there's something about pulling them back in the dark, walking along the streets.
Yes.
Again, the world is hushed and white and wonderful, and these beautiful white flakes of snow are floating down, and dragging, walking this parade of tired kids, pulling their sleds home in the winter wonderland. There was something surreal and magical about that. And this time of year, sometimes I'll recall that distant memory and wish that I had the same kind of passion and lust for life. And sometimes you feel it kindled inside, but for the most part, you know that you're kind of dead and cynical and jaded.
Well, as much as I wish I could instill that passion into my kids, and they just don't really have an interest on it, because they just no, I'd rather watch TV, play video games. That's their passion. And so part of me wants to kind of imagine what they're going to be telling their kids when the time comes.
When I was a boy, I got the high score on. Yeah, whatever.
I'm really curious as to what stories, what tales they can tell. I've drug them out to the sledding hill a few times, and that's what it feels like as I'm dragging them out there. It's like, come on. And they'll have fun a few times as long as you carry them back up to the top.
Yeah.
Can you pull my sled up? Can
It's
you pull me up in the sled?
It's a lot of work to walk.
Can you pull me up in the sled?
Yeah.
What? Are you kidding me?
Sunisa asked me on our way back from Thailand, we're in the airplane. She said, you know, when it snows, can we go over to that place, the Cherry Hill? Can
Yeah.
we go over that place and ride our sleds?
Yes.
And I said, yeah, let's do it. And that's
Yeah.
one of the things I like about Sunisa Bird is
Yeah.
she very
She
much
still has that
still
kid.
has that kid in her. And
Well, for her, she didn't have that opportunity growing up.
no, she'd never seen snow.
Yes.
When she first came to the U.S., at the time I lived in L.A., and about the first week she was there, she said, I want to see snow. I think, oh,
Wrong state.
man, we're kind of in the wrong situation for that. But then I looked at the weather, and about 2 hours north of L.A., there's a mountain peak, and there's a snowstorm on it.
Nice.
So I thought, okay, let's go up and see the snow. I thought, she's
With
going
your-
to see the snow. She's going to touch
Yeah.
it and say, oh, this is cold. Let's get
Yeah.
out of here. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Nope. She fell in
Glory.
love with it. She
Yes.
loves it. She likes to play in the snow, likes to have snowball fights, likes to build snowmen, likes to ride the sled. Sometimes when there's a good snowstorm, she'll get on the sled. I bought a sled with a steel runner.
Yes. I've got one hanging in the shop too.
Yeah, I bought one just for her, and then, you know, I pull her down to the lake, let her ride on the sled, and it reminds me of the kid I once was, and perhaps still am inside somewhere, lost in all the trauma and bitterness of adulthood.